It's 2 a.m. and they're in your head again. Not because anything happened today, not because you saw something that reminded you of them, just because your brain decided, without your permission, that right now was the time to replay that conversation, or the way they looked at you once, or the version of them that existed in the beginning, before everything changed. You know, rationally, that it's over. You know, rationally, that it wasn't good for you. You have said those words to yourself and to other people enough times that they have almost stopped meaning anything. And yet, here you are. Again, you have probably been told to move on, that it's been long enough, that you need to stop giving this person space in your head. What nobody has told you is why you can't, and the reason is not what you think. What you are experiencing has a clinical name: intrusive rumination, the involuntary, repetitive recall of a person or experience that persists despite conscious effort to redirect attention away from it. Research by psychologist Susan Nolan-Hoeksema, whose foundational work on rumination and its relationship to depression and anxiety has shaped how psychologists understand obsessive thought patterns, identifies intrusive rumination as distinct from ordinary reflection. It is not you thinking about them. It is your nervous system returning compulsively to an unresolved threat. And the key word there is unresolved, because the reason they will not leave your mind is not sentiment. It is not weakness. It is neuroscience. Your brain is still trying to process something that was specifically designed to be unprocessable. Most people who can't stop thinking about someone who hurt them arrive at the same painful conclusion that they must still want them, that they must, on some level, believe the relationship could have worked, that they are, to put it plainly, not over it. That conclusion feels like a character assessment, like evidence of something inadequate. It isn't. What you are experiencing is the predictable neurological aftermath of a specific kind of relational conditioning. The thoughts are not a measure of your feelings. They are a symptom of what was done to your nervous system. There is a significant difference between missing someone and being physiologically unable to stop thinking about them. This is the second thing. Mechanism 1. The incomplete loop. The human brain has a deeply embedded drive to complete unfinished cognitive and emotional tasks. Psychologists call this the Zygarnik effect, first identified by Lithuanian psychologist Bluma Zygarnik, who observed that people remember interrupted tasks significantly better than completed ones. In a healthy relationship, one that ends clearly and honestly, with resolution, the brain receives enough information to close the loop. It processes the ending. It grieves. It moves. In a relationship that operated on unpredictability, on promises that were inconsistently kept, on a version of the other person that appeared and disappeared without explanation, the brain never received the resolution it required. You are not thinking about them because you want them back. You are thinking about them because your brain is still waiting for an explanation that is never coming. The loop cannot close because the information required to close it was never provided, and so it runs. Again and again, at 2 a.m., and in quiet moments, and in the middle of conversations that have nothing to do with them. Mechanism 2. Intermittent reinforcement and neurological addiction. In the 1950s, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner conducted a series of experiments that would prove foundational to our understanding of addiction. His finding that unpredictable reward schedules produce far more compulsive behavior than consistent ones has since been applied to slot machine design, social media algorithms, and the neuroscience of toxic relationships. A relationship that oscillates between warmth and coldness, between closeness and withdrawal, between the person you fell for and the person who made you feel worthless, activates the brain's dopamine reward system in the same pattern as gambling. Not because the person is a drug, but because the inconsistency itself is neurologically indistinguishable from one. Neuroscientist Helen Fisher's research on romantic rejection demonstrates that the neural activity of someone in the aftermath of an unpredictable relationship is strikingly similar to that of someone withdrawing from a substance. The craving is real. The obsession is physiological. The inability to simply decide to stop is not a failure of willpower. Your brain was trained to keep seeking. It is doing exactly what it was conditioned to do. Mechanism 3. The identity disruption. There is a third element that is less commonly discussed and perhaps the most quietly devastating. In extended relationships, particularly those that involve significant emotional investment, your sense of who you are becomes in part organized around the other person, not in a codependent or unhealthy sense necessarily, simply in the way that all close relationships become part of our self-concept. When that relationship ends, especially abruptly, especially without the closure that would allow you to integrate the experience, you do not just lose the person, you lose the version of yourself that existed in relation to them. Psychologist Philip Shaver's research on attachment and identity shows that the grief of losing a significant relationship often includes what he terms identity disruption, a period in which the self-concept is genuinely destabilized, not metaphorically, but in terms of measurable cognitive and emotional functioning. You keep thinking about them partly because thinking about them is the last connection to a version of yourself you haven't finished grieving yet. This is probably your experience if the following are true. The thoughts come most often in moments of stillness, late at night, early in the morning, during tasks that don't require your full attention. Your brain fills the available space with them automatically. You have replayed specific conversations, looking for the moment where things shifted, as though finding that moment will finally make the whole thing make sense. You have caught yourself constructing explanations for their behavior, not to excuse it, but because a reason, any reason, would feel better than the alternative, that it simply happened, and you will never fully understand why. The good memories are often more present than the bad ones, not because the bad ones weren't real, but because the good ones were what made the bad ones survivable, and your brain keeps returning to them as evidence of what could have been. You have been embarrassed by how long this has lasted. You have hidden from people how often you still think about it. You are not still in love with them in any straightforward sense, but you are not done with the experience of them, and those are not the same thing. The second one is what makes it so difficult to leave behind. The thoughts will not stop immediately because you understand where they come from. But something does change when you stop interpreting them as evidence of weakness and start reading them for what they actually are: an incomplete loop seeking closure. A nervous system still running a pattern it was trained to run. A self-concept in the process of rebuilding itself after a destabilization it didn't choose. None of that is failure. All of it is process. And process, unlike feelings, has a direction. Drop a comment below. Is it the incomplete loop, the explanation you never got, or the good memories that keep you stuck? Most people find it's one more than the other.